So hello and welcome to Planning Your Professional Development. I'm Andy King.
And I'm Jessica Birch.
We're coming to you from AmeriCorps Vista headquarters in Washington, D.C. We're assisted today by Scott Weinrobe and Andy Clark from Education Northwest. You'll see them in the chat and Q&A to assist you during today's session.
So first off, we want to thank you all who've been posting into the chat box to our chat question about the goal that you hope to accomplish during your VISTA service. So just to read out a few of these, Melanie said that she wants to ensure that her pilot program, specifically a mentoring program, is a success, so that the program can continue to run for as long as it's needed, which perfectly sums up, what this is about, making sure that that program goes even after you've left. Elsa said that she hopes to get a literacy program up and running in at least 2 more locations, so that's great, expanding that reach. And Kaya, I apologize if I'm saying your name incorrectly, but you said that you hope to set up a network where males have the opportunity to support each other in the conversation about preventing domestic violence and sexual assault. It's very important, as you said here, to get, not only females but males all involved with preventing and trying to eradicate domestic violence and sexual assault. So thank you, Melanie, Elsa, Kaya, all of you for all the great work that you're doing. So you may have joined VISTA, if one of those doesn't fall into what those people said, you may have joined to become involved in an anti-poverty cause, or maybe just to learn about nonprofit management. Maybe it's even just the opportunity to become a better public speaker or to help a specific community that is meaningful to you. And maybe you've identified challenges related to your work and professional development.
This session will show you how to make the most of your year of VISTA service so that while you're building capacity in the community, you're also building your own capacity. The VISTA program offers a range of resources to support your professional development, but the best way to make it happen is to start with a plan. So in this session, we'll help you plan your professional development and we'll point you to resources you can use to make it happen.
So we have VISTAs on the webinar from several different PSOs. Those are pre-service orientations. So let's just take a moment to get a sense of who is in this virtual session with us today by using one of the fun features of WebEx. In the upper left corner of the screen is an icon that kind of looks like a little pencil. Click on that to see the annotation tool on the left side of your screen. Click the arrow tool and then click on the map to point to where you are serving as a VISTA. You might want to make the slide full screen so you can easily see where more people are located. So let's just take a look while everyone does that. Ooh, there's a lot of people in the East Coast, a lot of people in, the Wisconsin, Chicago, Ohio area. I like Melanie, she's right there in Florida. We got Shelby in Texas. Someone just put a dot, or I guess it's Alyssa there. I like it. Mia, are you in Hawaii? That's awesome if you're in Hawaii. Kaya, you're in Alaska. I served in Alaska. Have a real fondness of Alaska. And you guys are serving all over. As you can see, a bunch of you are in tons of different places, and you probably see people who are right next to you. So that's just a fun little thing. We like to be able to have everyone see where you're at. So later in the session, we'll show you how you can find other VISTAs by using the VISTA map and other features on the VISTA campus. And by the way, if you switched your slides to view to full screen, you may want to switch back now so that you can participate in other activities that will be coming up.
All right, so thanks, Jessica, for leading us through that activity. It's always lots of fun to see where people are serving. So let's take a look at our agenda for today. We'll start out with an introduction to 3 key tools that will guide your year of service and your professional development journey. We'll then share 4 steps that you can begin right now to plan and reach your professional development goals. And then we'll close the session with a brief walkthrough of some important features of the VISTA campus. And then, as we mentioned, we'll be opening up the lines for your questions. Throughout today's presentation, we'll have opportunities for you to share your thoughts and explore the VISTA campus. So let's dive right in.
Thanks, Andy. So on your screen now, you see this little curvy line, and no, it's not the Loch Ness Monster. As you've probably heard, VISTA Service is not just a year of serving the community, but it really also is a year of personal and professional development for you. During PSO, you learn some of the basics, such as understanding your VAD or creating an individual development plan, and also navigating the VISTA campus to help find those useful resources. But now comes the fun part. It's time to take your initial thoughts and turn them into an action plan.
So first, let's revisit one of your most important tools. Your responsibilities as a VISTA member are outlined in the VISTA assignment description that we fondly call the VAD. So during PSO, you reviewed your VAD and you began to think about what it's going to take for you to accomplish it. In the time since your PSO, you and your supervisor have likely come up with additional activities to support the achievement of those objectives and to capitalize on your own unique strengths. So your VAD may be refined somewhat from the original version that you started out with.
And during PSO and on-site orientation and training, you also began identifying the knowledge and skills you'll need to be successful in completing your VAD. So an individual development plan can be a great way to map out the professional development that you will need in order to reach those professional goals. If you don't have an individual development plan, we have an easy-to-use version that you can download from the VISTA campus. The link is being posted as we speak in the chat panel, and the plan kind of looks like the one we have on the screen. So you really should think of your individual development plan as a roadmap for learning. We have good intentions to take classes, to read more, to join a professional network, but sometimes those things don't generally happen by accident. We need to plan for them, and an IDP is a great way to do that. So you can plot your path with concrete steps for building your skills, and having it in writing really makes it easier for you to get the support from your supervisor that you need. Your VISTA onboarding also introduced you to the VISTA campus. So everyone went through there to do the terms and conditions, to learn about your benefits. It is really an important resource for your ongoing learning. During this webinar, we'll introduce you to a lot more resources that you may want to include in your development plan. So just be ready to jot them down or copy the links that we share.
So we've just identified 3 important tools for your success: your VAD responsibilities, your professional development goals, and your access to the VISTA campus. So now you're ready for professional development action. These 4 steps of action that I'm going to share were developed with input from VISTA members who shared tips about what helped them to be successful during their year of service.
So you've been at VISTA for just a few weeks. You're becoming accustomed to your new surroundings, a new workplace, and maybe even perhaps a new income level. So we want to use another fun feature of WebEx, the raise hand feature. It's located at the bottom of the participant panel in the upper right corner of the screen. So if you know the answer to this question, I want you to click raise hand. How many sick days and how many personal days off do you get as a VISTA? Click the raise hand if you know the answer. So we're going to wait for you guys to be able to do that. The raise hand. Ooh, I see hands. Ooh. Hey, there's a lot of hands.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're really hoping that everybody knows the answer to that question.
Yeah, so if you don't, which mostly everybody does, it's a good idea to look at the VISTA member handbook. So you guys can all put your hands down now.
Yeah. So one of the first steps of getting settled is to read the VISTA member handbook, as Jessica said. The handbook is located on the VISTA campus in the section called Life as a VISTA. It lists the policies of the VISTA program, and it outlines the process for requesting assistance. Some other steps you can take to get settled include speaking with your supervisor or your VISTA leader if you have one, and talking with other team members about the community you'll be serving, about your VISTA project, and what your role is in that project. It's a good idea to meet with your supervisor on a regular basis, so now's a good time to set that up. If you've got questions about things like your living allowance, your benefits, or the education award, you're going to want to contact the VISTA Member Support Unit. You can do that through the National Service Hotline, and we'll share that number with you a little bit later on, but you probably have it already. And then you can contact your CNCF state office for support regarding emergencies, issues with your supervisor, or bigger questions around VISTA policy.
And in addition to the people that Andy just mentioned, you have access to other resources like the VISTA Campus and one of the greatest, most useful, most resourceful resource ever, other VISTAs. You can check out the VISTA forums for insights from your fellow VISTAs to see what they've shared in response to questions or challenges others have posted. If you don't see what you're looking for, post the question or offer advice in response to others. They will appreciate it. You will appreciate it. It's a wonderful resource for you all. And as we mentioned, the campus offers a whole library of on-demand webinars on topics such as living on the living allowance or using the Education Award, or managing those pesky student loans. You'll find those webinars on the, no kidding, Webinars for VISTA page of the VISTA Campus. So check that out. It's a lot of great information.
And speaking of the living allowance, by now most of you have received at least one living allowance payment. If you're being paid directly by the VISTA program, you can access your living allowance statements in your account in MyAmeriCorps. If you're being paid by your sponsor, then you'll receive your pay statement directly from them. And if you go into MyAmeriCorps, you'll see a note that says you're being paid by your sponsor, so go to them for your living allowance statement. There's a sample there on the screen of what that living allowance statement looks like. Just as a reminder, the VISTA program does not withhold anything from your pay or state income tax. So you may want to be setting aside a little bit of money each payday so that when tax time rolls around next April, you'll have the funds available to pay your state income tax.
Thanks, Andy. I know, guys, it stinks, no taxes, but we got to do it. So just take Andy's advice and try to hold some money back. So you'll recall from the Education Award tutorial that you may have taken before you started VISTA.
You all took before you started VISTA.
All right, Andy. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but yeah, you're right. Everyone would have taken it. There are strategies that you can use to reduce the burden of making student loan payments during your year of service. So if you haven't already, please be sure to investigate these options to figure out which one will work best for you and your situation. Just as a reminder, if you selected the Education Award and you have federally qualified student loans, you have the option to put them in a status known as National Service Forbearance. You do this on the MyAmeriCorps system. You look for the link under My Education Award in the left menu. This link wasn't available to you before you started service, so it should be available to you now. And once you've submitted a request, you can go back here and check the status. So to create a forbearance request, click on Create Forbearance Request. I know, very intuitive, it's awesome. And you will see the forbearance request form where you select your current term of service and then click on the link to search for institutions. That is the lending institution that holds your loan. So once you've found your lending institution, you can submit your forbearance request. For more on the subject of loan forbearance or using the Education Award in general, there is a great website about Education Awards that also explains these various strategies for managing loans while you're in service. We also have a couple of on-demand webinars on the VISTA campus that take an in-depth look at the AmeriCorps Eli Siegel Education Award and strategies for managing those, as I said, pesky student loans.
All right, so another dimension of getting settled is getting settled in your organization. It's important to feel comfortable in the organization where you're serving because that's where you'll be spending most of your time as a VISTA. If you haven't done so already, schedule a regular check-in meeting with your supervisor. We see that as essential to your success in meeting your VISTA goals and ensuring that your project is sustainable. Next, take some time to explore what has been done before. dive into some documents that can lay the foundation for your organization, including the strategic plan, their mission statement, and the vision. If there have been VISTA members at your site before you, review their accomplishments through things like past quarterly reports, which your supervisor can probably share with you. Finally, you're going to want to take some time to get to know your colleagues. Meet with people in various departments to learn about their roles and how you might work together. These contacts are also likely to have connections in the community that could be helpful to you.
So you've settled in. You've settled into your organization, into the community. You're feeling good. So now you've identified some areas for personal growth. Now it's time to turn that VAD into action. Having a well-structured work plan helps you jump into your service and track progress. While you were working in the community, you may forget to record all the incredible work you are doing. So how does one begin to create this plan? So first and foremost, meet with your supervisor to review your VAD and develop measurable goals, milestones, and deliverables. Make sure to keep your VAD handy so that you can refer back to it periodically to track your progress.
So you're going to want to create a plan now to track your achievements. And we have a tool that's available that can help you with that. It's what we call the VISTA Impact Reporting Tool. And it allows you to track your activities using a smartphone or a computer. Keeping a log of your activities and successes will not only help you when reports are due, but it'll also give you a clear record of your achievements to reference after you finish your term of service. The VISTA Impact tool is available only through the VISTA campus. We have a recorded webinar that highlights this VISTA Impact tool, and we'll show you how to access it and add it to your device during our brief campus walkthrough in just a bit.
So step 3 is take time to learn and grow. So now that you've identified some action steps, it's time to determine ways to improve your skills that relate to your VAD. It's likely your VAD includes things that you've never done before, which is okay, totally fine. That will give you the opportunity to learn something new. Your supervisor may also recommend you participate in additional trainings related to your VAD. On the VISTA campus, the work section contains self-paced tutorials covering a variety of specific skills. VISTA offers monthly webinars covering topics such as recruiting volunteers, which I know some of you mentioned in the chat with our first question, about holding effective meetings and building community networks. There's a pretty extensive library of on-demand sessions available on the webinars for VISTA's page on the VISTA campus, so make sure to check them out, check it and check it again because we're always adding new ones. And VISTA also offers 2 online courses that we call the VISTA Blend. Not to be confused with those of you who participated in PSO Blend. VISTA Blend is a 10-week online course that can be completed for college credit. Be sure to consult with your supervisor and plan your workload accordingly before taking advantage of those learning opportunities. They're offered 3 times a year, so watch your inbox for notice of the next enrollment period.
Thanks, Jessica. And while the VISTA campus is always a good place to begin building your knowledge, there are many other free and reputable resources available to help you get started. We're going to mention some examples that may be helpful, but I just want to say our mentioning a particular resource or website does not mean that it's endorsed by the VISTA program or the Corporation for National and Community Service. We're offering them just as examples to help illustrate the kind of thing that we're talking about. So even with all of the online resources available today, brick-and-mortar public libraries are still really valuable learning sites. Many local libraries have access to online databases and particularly grant-writing resources. All you need is a library card. In addition, librarians are usually well-versed in the latest digital trends and resources, so they can be a great help. Plus, many libraries offer free access to things like audiobooks, e-books, movies, music, and more. Not to mention, they often have a community bulletin board that you can use to post notices for volunteers and community meetings, and you might even find a recreational or social opportunity for yourself.
pretty cool. I love the library. They just opened a new one where I live, and it's amazing. So check it out, guys. The U.S. Census Bureau, and I'm going to repeat that, the U.S. Census Bureau, not that I would ever think to go to the U.S. Census Bureau, but they offer free webinars that are on a range of topics related to using census data to better understand communities. Whether it's looking at education and income levels in various neighborhoods, or understanding who's living in Indian country. These webinars offer insights and allow you to conduct your own research based on your interests.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the Census Bureau, they have this thing they call summer camp. So they have all these webinars happening over the summer. There's like 3 a week, I think. And they're on a whole range of topics like, you know, looking at county data to figure out income levels, or looking at Puerto Rican immigrants and education levels. I mean, very specific, but a whole range of really interesting things that I would never have thought to do. But it's a great way to learn about your community, and particularly because they have so much information about income and resources, it's a great way to understand poverty in the place where you're serving. So in addition to those, you can also carefully turn to the internet for free resources. So there's sites like Coursera, Khan Academy, and Allison that provide free online courses from Ivy League institutions on a wide range of topics. More specific to the nonprofit world are sites like the Free Management Library and the Alliance for Nonprofit Management, which offer free and inexpensive articles, reports, and resources, again on a range of topics, but related to nonprofit work. And Andy has posted the links to those sites there, so if you're interested, you can check them out.
Yes, definitely. And professional organizations are another great resource available to help meet your learning goals. So in addition to connecting to others in your field, they can offer significant professional development opportunities. So some organizations even have entire sections of their websites dedicated to professional development and career advancement, and many of them at no cost. So while not all of the events and resources are free, it never hurts to see what's happening in your area and ask your supervisor if you might be able to attend.
Right. You might take advantage of new networks that your VISTA position will expose you to. And a great place to start is with a YPN, or a Young Professionals Network, because they often offer networking, professional development, and even volunteer opportunities. There's even a Young Nonprofit Professionals Network. So check out ynpn.org to find a local chapter. And if there isn't a local chapter near you, you could consider starting one.
Yeah, I love Young Professional Networks. They're so much fun. They usually do like trivia nights. They do other things other than just professional development, so it's great.
Yeah. LinkedIn is another great resource for making connections. To spend some time scouring your current contacts, because there might be someone there who is only 1 or 2 connections away from you.
And additionally, if you're serving at any of the NeighborWorks organizations, or even if you're not, be sure to explore the many training opportunities they offer. NeighborWorks provides training on everything from nonprofit leadership to professional development, community assessment, and supporting minority populations. That's just to name a few. And finally, don't overlook local development opportunities such as those offered by a volunteer center, United Way, Chamber of Commerce, Toastmasters, Urban League, or national organizations that might have local branches in your community. Chamber organizations often host professional mixers, as well as events directed towards emerging community professionals.
A few other things that I should mention. Those of you who are in the resource development field should check out the Association for Fundraising Professionals website and explore their professional development section. It includes everything from conferences and leadership training to executive institutes and certification. And for those of you working with volunteers, I encourage you to look at the Council for Certification in Volunteer Administration. You can review the certificate requirements and see if it sounds like something you might want to do later on in your career if you're looking to make volunteer management part of your career. And even if you won't complete their certificate now, you can still glean great resources from their website related to volunteer engagement. And don't forget about organizations like Points of Light and Energize Incorporated. Energize Incorporated has tools directly related to career advancement within the volunteer management field.
And while there might be a fee for many of the resources we mentioned, don't be afraid to ask your supervisor if you could pick one resource or training to pursue. There's also a chance that scholarships might be offered through the associations or training institutes, and it never hurts to apply.
All right, so we've given you a lot to think about. We've just shared a number of resources, and now we want to turn to you and get your ideas. So we're going to use the chat feature again. So if the chat window or panel has closed for you, you'll want to reopen it by clicking the little triangle next to the word chat. And the question is up there. So have you found a free course or online resource that was especially helpful to you? Or is there an affinity group or maybe a professional organization that you think resonates especially well with your VISTA service? If so, use the chat panel now to share what those resources are. Maybe there was a particular TED Talk that you saw that you think everyone should watch. If you know what that is, if you can remember what it was called, please share that now so that your colleagues can benefit from it. And I'm curious, we mentioned a number of resources. Have any of you taken any online courses on, say, Allison.com or Coursera? If so, would you recommend it? I know Allison has courses in things like community development, fundraising, and some other topics that are relevant to nonprofit work. On the other hand, Coursera has more general things like writing skills, project management, communications, but those can be really useful to you as a VISTA member as well. So curious to hear. And I see a lot of responses coming in now. Several of you have mentioned United Way and Community Toolbox, which I think is a tremendous resource.
Someone here mentioned lynda.com, and then you were talking about allison.com.
Oh, right.
It's like every name has a .com. I should make a jessica.com and offer some cool pictures of dogs or something.
Yeah, and Jessica Jake says next month that he'll be going to a NeighborWorks training in Detroit, so excellent.
Pretty cool. Oh, and speaking of TED Talks, there's TEDx Seattle Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I'm probably pronouncing that really wrong, but that's a TED Talk someone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard another presentation by him. He's fantastic. The Michigan Nonprofit Association, I happen to be a little bit familiar with them. They've got tremendous training available. So if you're in Michigan, that's a great resource there.
This is pretty awesome. This person, Annie here. Annie, I'm calling you out because I like it. She said, my organization works with a certain population, for example, immigrants. So my supervisor and I view webinars by local immigrant advocacy groups to stay updated on current related issues. Awesome. You do that with your supervisor. That's amazing. Like, definitely don't feel like shy to bring your supervisor in. If you find a great training or something you really want to do, sure, they could get something out of it as well. So that's awesome. Way to go, Annie. Yeah, and it sounds like a few of you are mentioning that you already had contacts. You've already developed networks before you came into your VISTA position, and that you're drawing on those networks and those contacts within your own professional community, which is tremendous. So this is great. I think you guys, this group has done better than most in sharing the kinds of resources that you're using and finding useful. So thank you for that. I'm going to allow you to continue sharing those, and we may come back to some of them later on in the session. So now we're going to do a step 4, and so you guys are already starting it. It's getting connected. So you're already connecting with one another by, what have you found as resourceful, useful? We're talking about resources, things that can connect you to others. So we know that you're already a part of the VISTA family. You're with us for life. You're a VISTA family. And you may not have, though, VISTAs at your site or even in your same city. I served in a city I was the only VISTA. Such a weird thing. But you can always connect through the VISTA campus. So we mentioned earlier, we talked about the VISTA map. So get into that in a second. So fill out your project area and interest in your campus user profile, your VISTA campus user profile. And add a photo. We want to see your smiling faces. And interact with other VISTAs on the VISTA forums by posting a question or a suggestion. Just start a conversation. It's a great way to connect with people all across the country. And you can also connect with the VISTA program through social media, such as Facebook or Twitter. And also, if you haven't already, identify yourself as an AmeriCorps VISTA member on LinkedIn and connect to the VISTA groups available via LinkedIn. And so I know Andy's not going to like what I'm about to do, but Mr. Andy King here is a Twitter aficionado, and you should friend Andy King, or I don't even know, follow Andy King on Twitter. See, Andy knows Twitter so much more. So you have to follow Andy King on Twitter. Do it. He posts a lot of fun stuff.
Andy King, D.C.
Exactly, Andy King, D.C. And if there are other visitors in your area, arrange a get-together and come together face-to-face to learn about what one another's doing, your struggles, your successes. You can find VISTAs in your area along with alumni or leaders by using that fun VISTA map I talked about. You really should also think about reaching out to those VISTA alumni. They often know the area and are happy to help current VISTAs.
Yeah, that's right. Our alumni are amazing, and so we always love to mention them and draw them back into the VISTA program wherever we can. So another dimension of getting connected is showing your VISTA pride. So by now you either have a VISTA polo shirt or you've ordered one, and we hope that you'll wear it with pride. We also want to make sure that you identify yourself as a VISTA in your interactions by putting the VISTA logo on your business card, in your email signature block, and make sure that it's on your organization's website, on their social media platforms, brochures, and other communications. You know, and sometimes VISTAs say, well, why should I do that? But if you think about it, your organization would not fail to put the logo of one of their donors, a major donor or sponsor. And in the same way, the Corporation for National and Community Service and AmeriCorps VISTA is providing a tremendous resource to your organization. You know, we're providing you, the VISTA members. So you're an invaluable resource, and hopefully they will recognize that and acknowledge that publicly on the website and those other areas where I mentioned. In the web links that Andy just posted, thank you, Andy, there in the chat, you can find the links to places where you can download VISTA logos, where you can get VISTA publications, and if you want to order additional gear that you can use to decorate your office or to represent VISTA in the field. So those links are posted there in the chat.
That's true. We want you to show it off. I want everyone to know that there's a VISTA serving here, so go and do that. And Andy, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right. So at PSO, you started to develop your minute message. That's a short speech about your organization and your role as a VISTA member. Make sure you rehearse your minute message often so that it comes easily to you and you can explain quickly what it is that you're doing. There are plenty of resources on the VISTA campus that can teach you about creating these messages. And also when you're out and about, don't forget to take pictures and share them through your social media outlets. As Jessica was saying, on Facebook and Twitter, we love to see those. You never know when the official VISTA, AmeriCorps VISTA account may share or retweet your photo or your service story. So talking more about getting connected is getting connected to your community. At PSO, you saw ways to learn about the community by doing research, developing that community profile. Once you know something about the community, you're going to want to get out there and become familiar with it firsthand. In a community, face-to-face interaction is vital for establishing trust. Attend social functions such as community festivals, networking events, neighborhood meetings, open houses, or fundraisers. And when you go, wear your VISTA polo or your lapel pin, of course. Just being seen in the community and being supportive of other events makes people want to be more invested in your work. So begin scheduling meetings with community leaders that you've met at these events.
So, you know, Andy's talking about, you know, face-to-face interaction, meeting the community. That can be make me a little nervous. Like, I'm a little shy. Like It makes me a little scared. So, you know, a slightly different approach is maybe to have someone introduce you to the community. So ask your supervisor to connect you with someone willing to serve as your community ambassador to help you connect with the community. This person should be someone who's well-established in the community, who's able to give you a background on the region so that you can approach your VISTA service in a more meaningful way, and who can introduce you to key leaders in the community. An ambassador can also open doors for you. But if you don't have one, don't let that stop you from exploring and learning about the community.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Now, just to recap, here again are your 4 steps to maximize your effectiveness. First, get settled into your life as a VISTA member. Get to know the program, your site, and your community. Secondly, turn your VAD into action by developing your learning goals and holding yourself accountable for achieving them. Third, take time to learn about the resources available to you both inside and outside of the VISTA campus. And finally, get connected with other VISTAs, alumni, and members in the community who can support your success.
So you've heard about 3 features on the VISTA campus that will help you stay connected and informed. First, the VISTA campus benefit page, your learning plan, and your learning connections. So now we're going to hear from the always wise Scott Weinrobe, who is going to show you how to access these VISTA campus features, along with some others that we mentioned during this webinar. So Scott, take it away.
Well, thank you, Jessica. And wow, I don't usually get introduced that way, so I'm So, hi everyone. It's really nice to be with you today, and I'm glad to have a chance to talk with you a little bit, as Jessica said, about the VISTA campus. So you should be seeing it on your screen. We're going to do a little live tour here, just a brief one though. So the campus is designed, we hope, to be really easy to navigate. Just to see the different areas of the campus, just roll your mouse over the menu tabs at the top of the screen. And the sections that I think you'll be most interested in exploring are Life as a VISTA and the work. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those and some of the key features you'll find in these areas. So the benefits page is under Life as a VISTA and in service. And this will look very familiar to you from your pre-service online orientation or your pre-service online resources. This page provides information really on all your benefits, from the living allowance to the education award and everything in between. And it's a great place to go if you have questions about any of your benefits. As you scroll down the page, you'll see a section for each of the benefits, an overview in the information tab, and then you can click resources to do a deeper dive and really kind of find out more information to help answer any of your questions. So Jessica and Andy mentioned the VISTA Impact Reporting tool, and that's also accessible through the Life as a VISTA menu, again under In Service, this link at the bottom. So the VISTA Impact Reporting tool, once you get to this page, you click this link and it'll connect you right to the Impact page. And even though it says Impact App here, this is really a mobile-friendly website that will work on any web-enabled phone, tablet, or on the web browser on your PC or Mac. So it's not an app that you would have to download from any app store. It'll work on any device that has a web browser. When you go to the Impact tool, you'll be asked to log in. You won't need to create a new login for that site. It's the same login as your VISTA Campus username and password. So another feature of the VISTA Campus that we hope you'll find useful is the learning plan. You can access the learning plan from your home page. If you're logged in, there's a link right at the top here, or you can get there by clicking your name in the upper right part of the screen and then clicking on Learning Plan. So the learning plan is divided into a few different sections. Required learning was the Starting VISTA page that had all of the terms and conditions course and benefits and civil rights and so on, all of the required training that you did before you started service. Suggested learning It contains a number of different resources. Some are automatically suggested to all VISTAs when they start service and create an account on the campus. And then suggested learning is also where any training that's suggested by your Learning Connections will show up. And we'll come back to Learning Connections in just a moment. And then the last section is favorite content. This is a way that you can bookmark resources that you find on the campus to easily refer back to later. So let's talk a little bit more about how you would add something to favorite content on your learning plan. You can use our handy and pretty powerful search engine on the campus. So let's say that I've heard that there's a good webinar that a colleague of mine attended on translating VISTA service to your resume and career. So I type in resume, and there's really quite a bit here. So let me focus. I know that's a recorded webinar, so I'm going to go ahead and filter down to just recorded webinars. And then here it is. So I go to that page, and then all I would have to do is click Add this to my learning plan. And now the next time you go back to your learning plan, you don't have to go through that whole process of finding it again. It's there bookmarked for you right on your favorite content section. I mentioned Learning Connections a moment ago and in terms of suggested learning. So let's talk a little bit about how you can make learning connections through the campus. So there's a couple of ways you can go. You can either go to your account and go to your profile, or we also added a link under Connect and Learn to Learning Connections. And if you're logged in, that will take you right to the Learning Connections page in your account profile. You can filter by focus area, or if you know the person you're looking for, you can just search by name. So I want to make a connection with my supervisor, who happens to be named Celia Supervisor. So I search for her, and there she is. All I would have to do is click this little plus icon, and then it will ask me to confirm, and if I do, it will send her a connection request. And once she approves, then Celia and I are connected. And at that point, we can suggest resources to each other on the campus, or you can also use the messaging system on the campus to send private messages to your connections. So that's a way that you can connect with people if you happen to know their name, or you're just wanting to look by focus area. You can also use the VISTA map, as Jessica and Andy mentioned before, to find people who are serving in your location. So that, again, is under Connect and Learn. What you can do is just kind of zoom in and scroll around on the map. You'll see that the tags are grouped by VISTAs, supervisors, leaders, alumni, and so on. To find out a little bit more, once you find someone in your area, you would just click on their pin. You can click their name to get more information, and then if that's someone who you might want to make a connection with, again, you just click that little plus icon, and you can send a connection request. So the last thing I want to show you briefly is a way to connect with your fellow VISTAs, and really to kind of share ideas and experience and resources is through the forums on the VISTA campus. So all of these, again, are under the Connect and Learn area of the campus. Click on forums. We have them grouped by forums for VISTAs, forums for VISTA supervisors, and then if you become a VISTA leader, there's also forums dedicated to VISTA leaders. So click on VISTA forums, and then what you'll find there are forums on a number of different topics. A really popular one is the VISTA Cafe. Anything that you want to share there that doesn't seem to fall easily into another area, just post to the VISTA Cafe, and you can add a new forum add a new forum topic, and you can also subscribe so that as people add new topics to the VISTA Cafe or any of our other forums, you'll get an email notice when some new content is posted. So those are just some of the highlights of the VISTA campus, but I really encourage you to spend some time exploring and hope you'll find it useful. And with that, let me pass the presenter role back to Andy and Jessica.
Thank you so much, Scott. Everybody silently give a round of applause to Scott because that was awesome. So it's helpful to see where those various resources are housed. I know you guys have seen some of those with like the benefits, and maybe you've even posted on the forums. But we just wanted to go through for those of you who hadn't so that you can get a little tutorial on how to use those interactive tools. So if you're not sure what to do next on the Vista campus, because in reality it's, you know, a huge campus with tons of information, here are a few ideas. So first, yes, Andy, did you want to throw something in there?
Wait, well, I think our slide went ahead before you had a chance to review the 3 steps that they could do on the Vista campus. You could visit the benefits page. You could add a resource to your learning plan, or you could connect using Learning Connections, as Scott just showed us, or through the forums and through the Vista Maps. So those are 3 pretty simple, straightforward steps. If you weren't sure what to do first, you could try those 3.
Thanks, Andy. I was just trying to make sure you knew what they were. All right?
I know. All right, so now it's time for us to hear from our participants again. So we're going to use the chat feature one more time. We've covered a lot of information already. So taking into account the 4 steps for action that we looked at, what is one next step that you can take after this webinar ends? Maybe it's bookmarking the Vista Member Handbook in your learning plan. Maybe it's scheduling coffee with a coworker, or maybe it's searching for the next community association meeting. So what are your ideas? Please use the chat panel to share them now.
We got the first one out of the gate, Andy. Alyssa, she's going to get in contact with community leaders and start building a network. You go, Alyssa.
Yeah, that's excellent. Maureen's going to use the individual development plan.
I like how she's using the acronym too, like the IDP. Like, I like it. Let's see. Amy here is going to update her LinkedIn social media. Nice. You're gonna friend Andy, aren't you? You're following. Sorry, I don't know the lingo.
Yeah. Elsa's going to search for other Vistas who are doing similar types of service to hers, and looks like Sean's going to look for Vistas in the geographic region.
Nice. Let's see. Amy here says she's going to stalk you on Twitter, Andy.
Thanks.
Let's see. There's a few, like Elizabeth and Karen are said they're going to both get involved in a Young Professionals Network.
Yeah. Corey wants to download the Impact app. Great. So all of you have great ideas here. So hopefully you've got at least one concrete thing you can do that you can take away from this webinar that's going to be useful for you. We know that all of you are working on different things. You've all got different types of responsibilities. So we hope you'll find one that's relevant for you. So if you, I haven't seen anybody mention, but you might want to make sure that you've got a regular meeting set up with your supervisor, or that you're going to meet with other team members who are located at your service site, so you can kind of get more information about where you're serving and what's going on there. And a couple of you mentioned professional organizations, so you might research that, see what kinds of resources they've got available, and check them out. All right, so thank you for sharing those. You can continue popping them into the chat as we go. So I want to give you a few ideas for next steps. In addition to the one that you all just shared, here are some other steps that you could take starting today. First, as a couple of you mentioned, take some time to complete an individual development plan if you think that would be useful. You can use this webinar in the Vista campus to enhance and identify some professional development goals and then share those with your supervisor. And as I said, if you don't have a regular meeting scheduled with your supervisor, reach out and schedule one.
You should identify one. I mean, you should identify like hundreds, but just identify one resource, whether it's an on-demand webinar or a self-paced course or some helpful video. And no, I don't mean like funny cat videos, to add to your learning plan on the Vista campus. You should also reach out to another campus user. There's like, what, 100 and some odd of you on this webinar right now. Like, reach out to one of you through the Learning Connections or by using the Vista map.
And finally, research a professional organization in your current field or in a field that interests you and investigate what a typical career path in that area looks like. And you can also then look at online trainings, resources, webinars, and other learning opportunities. So I've given you a lot to think about, and I'm sure you have some questions. But before we start the Q&A session, we want to get your feedback on this presentation. So you're going to see an evaluation poll that will open up on the right side of your screen. We ask that you take a moment to answer the 10 questions that are in the poll. You'll need to use the scroll bar to scroll down so you can see all the questions. But trust me, we use your feedback, your input to improve these webinars and to get your ideas for other types of topics that you'd like to see offered. So while you're completing that evaluation, we're going to start the Q&A portion of the session. So there are a couple ways that you can ask questions. We already, I think, have seen the Q&A panel. It's located on the right side of your screen, and because the poll is open, the Q&A has collapsed. So you can reopen that by clicking the little triangle next to the letters Q and A. Submit your question to panelists, and we'll be able to read it and respond. And now I'm going to ask Elon, our operator, to come back on the phone to let us know how to ask a question by phone.
Thank you. On the audio portion, to ask a question, please press *1. Please unmute your phone and record your name clearly when prompted. Once again, to ask a question on the audio portion, press *1.
Thank you, Elon. So let's get to some, while we wait for some questions to come in through the phone, let's get to some questions that were in the Q&A. There were quite a few questions around taxes, so I just want to clarify a few, and I think that'll answer most of your questions. So we talked about your living allowance and how state taxes are not withheld. So just a few clarifying things. So federal taxes are taken out. So when you started service, you filled out a W-4, and that lets the IRS know how much to take out of your living allowance for federal taxes. However, state taxes are not taken out, but that does not mean that you are not responsible for state taxes. So come tax season next year, you will need to determine what your tax liability is and if you owe. So as Andy mentioned, our recommendation is that, you look at what the state tax rate is in your state, maybe set aside some money every month if you can, like, $25 each paycheck or something, so that when tax time comes around, you're not surprised about what you have to pay if you have to pay. This is a requirement for anyone who lives in a state where they pay state taxes. The only difference is that your living allowance doesn't take out those state taxes. Someone in here asked if it's something that a contractor does. No, it's something that you'll have to be responsible for come next tax season. Andy, is there anything else that you want to add to that?
Yeah, so oftentimes people say, well, how much will my state taxes be? We don't know, but you can go, every state has a website, and go to the Department of Taxation for your state, and there should be a tax table for, if not the current year, then at least last year, and see what your, estimate what your total income will be for the year 2016, and then look at the table and see, if I made X amount of money, and I'm single, I have no dependents, you have to factor in all of those different situations, and then see how much tax you would owe for the year. And then, if it's, I don't know, $120, I'm just making this up, then you know that you would need to save $10, set aside $10 each month, so that at the end of the year you'd have $120. So it's very individual. There's no way that we could tell you what your tax liability is going to be. So you're going to want to go to the Department of Taxation website for your state.
Right, and Cecilia here posted, she's like, maybe AmeriCorps should consider withholding state taxes. Cecilia, we would love to be able to do that, but since this is a national program and people serve everywhere, it's not something that we can do. We would love to be able to, we'd love to not have to tax everybody, but unfortunately that's just the limitations of our system. We also had a question here that got a lot of love. Nadia here, capital yes with 5 arrows. She's very excited about this. Someone asked, is there help studying for or paying for the GRE through AmeriCorps? So with regard to the studying part, man, if AmeriCorps offered help for me studying for my GRE, I would be in heaven. Unfortunately, there's no, AmeriCorps-sponsored study guide for the GRE. With regard to paying for the GRE test, you may be able to get a waiver of the fee through an institution to take the GRE. So it's based on the institution. So say, for example, you were going to apply to San Diego State University. You wanted to take the GRE test there, and you had planned to go to graduate school there. They may be able to offer you a waiver of the test fee, based on the fact that you're an AmeriCorps Vista or an AmeriCorps member. So that is possible, but it's done at the institution level. It's not something that AmeriCorps provides or anything like that. But your status as an AmeriCorps Vista member may help you get that waiver.
Right. Great, Jessica. So let's pause and turn to Alon to see if there are any questions on the phone.
And I am showing no questions at this time. As a reminder to ask a question, please press *1.
Okay, great. Well, we've got some other questions that have come in. Let's see, one of the questions sort of related to pay, what are we to expect on our first paycheck? So what I can tell you, because we have Vistas on this webinar who started at different times and attended different PSOs, you probably came into Vista service, that is your first day of service, was somewhere in the middle of a pay period. And you know that Vista pay periods are 2 weeks long. So your first paycheck will be for some portion of a pay period. It probably won't be for full 2 weeks, because maybe you started on a Monday, or maybe your first day in service was on a Friday. So it's going to be some portion of that. And then federal income tax will be withheld based on the amount that you were paid for that, for that portion of time that you were in service. Now, I'm going to post in the chat the link to, on the Vista campus, where the living allowance schedule is. So if you're not sure when the pay periods start, you can get that on the campus. And then you'll be able to see how many days you were in service for that first pay period. And just a reminder, payday is always on a Friday. So you'll work for 2 weeks, and then your pay will show up in your bank account the following Friday, so the Friday of week 3. So that's how the pay works there.
All right. So some other questions that came in, just trying to scroll through this, everybody. As I think Scott already answered here, this presentation will be posted on the Vista campus in about a week or so, so don't think you had to memorize everything we said. It will be available for you to view at a later time to get all those resources. We do have a question here from, it looks like Shay, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I'm already on an income-based repayment plan for your loan. Do you think it's wise to keep this or apply for forbearance? So I would love to be able to give you the answer and to tell you, what the best way for you to do for your loans. But unfortunately, since loans are just such a individual, unique situation, person to person, I can't really give you just an overarching advice. What I can do is recommend that you visit that education site that Andy mentioned, as well as view our on-demand webinar about managing student loans. Our colleague Calvin Landrum, he was an NCCC member for 2 years. He did almost everything you can imagine with his loans, and he really talked in depth about what the options are and what the implications are. So I would recommend checking out that webinar for more information.
Yeah, and just to add, you can do both. It's not mutually exclusive, so you can sign up for income-based repayment, and then based on your reduced monthly repayment amounts, you could put your loans into forbearance. So that way, without going into too much detail, at the end of your service year, If you wanted to make a lump sum payment retroactively, the amount you would pay back would be much less. So, so it's not an either-or with IBR and forbearance. So Sean has a question about our health benefit plan. And so the question is, does the AmeriCorps health benefit last the whole service year? And the answer is yes, it does. So the entire time you're in service, the health benefit option that you sign up for with our provider, IMG, you'll be covered, or that plan option will be in effect throughout that your entire term of service.
And there was another question that came in, Javante, and I'm so bad with names, I apologize, everyone. I found my lender institution, but it was rejected. But I know I have a loan through them. What do I do? So if you applied for forbearance and it was rejected, you want to contact your lender directly. Your lender is the ultimate authority on approving forbearance requests. So you should talk to them, and maybe, maybe it's something, the name was wrong or something. Like, check with them and see if they have more information and if they can tell you why it was rejected, or if there's a way that you can fix it so that it gets approved. But definitely want to contact your lender directly if that happened.
All right. So Abby has a question about what to do at her site. She says, my supervisor took another job last Friday. Man, bummer. She says, I have a general plan and I know how to follow my VAD, but I'd like some advice. So, Abby, what I'd say is I'm sorry that your supervisor has moved on, but know that your organization will be, and hopefully very soon, identifying someone else who will serve as your VISTA supervisor. And so you're going to want to find out who that person is. Because that's going to be obviously your new point of contact. In the meantime, in the interim, hopefully there's somebody else at the organization, maybe in human resources, maybe even in the fundraising department, if they were involved in developing the VISTA project plan, who can perhaps answer questions or give you some guidance around that, particularly because you're just getting started. It's really a crucial time for you to make sure that you're on the right track and that you're heading in the right direction. So definitely don't be afraid to ask questions. And if you find that you're not getting a response, or they say, well, we don't know who your supervisor is going to be, and if that persists for a while, then I think you'd want to contact your state office and get in touch with them, because that's their role. I mean, they're there to make sure that every VISTA member is receiving the support and supervision that they need, and that every project is on track for success. We want you to succeed. We want your sponsor to succeed. So that's why we have our state offices who are a little bit closer and can provide that support. Another question here from Scott. He says, I don't remember filling out a W-4 for my site. So, so depending on whether you're, but you would have filled out a W-4 form in My AmeriCorps. It doesn't necessarily look like the IRS version. It just has the fields that you need to fill out. But if you're getting paid by your sponsor, that is by your VISTA project site, they should have given you probably a paper version of the W-4 form to fill out. And if they didn't, you can always ask them for one. And if you filled one out in My AmeriCorps and you say, I don't remember what I put, you can always go in and look at it, and you can update it at any time. So if something changes and you find out, ooh, I'm not holding, I'm not having enough withheld, and I'm afraid I'm going to owe money at the end of the year, you can just change your withholdings to adjust that at any time.
And we have another question here from Andrew. Andrew asks, in regards to the health benefits, do you happen to know if I can use those funds to cover a bill for medical services received before I started VISTA? So Andrew, unfortunately, the answer is no. It has to, the only things that are covered with that allowance are medical expenses that you incurred during your VISTA service. So anything that came before then or after then does not count. We also had another question here, and it made me laugh for a second. If we choose to or get invited to complete a second year of service, will we have to do PSO and other parts of the VISTA initiation process again? I love the initiation. I feel like we're like a fraternity or like a sorority. Like we have all these like secret things. And so to answer that question, Gerard, no. So if you do a second year, if you do one within the next 4 years after you end service, you don't have to go through PSO again. It really just depends. I mean, that's kind of the main thing. You don't have to do PSO again if you serve again within the next 4 years. But, if you need to update your direct deposit or any of those sorts of things, that'll have to happen. But you will not go through PSO again. All right. Elon, are there any questions over the phone?
I am showing no questions.
All right. Oh, okay, the chat.
So there are a couple questions here about whether Social Security and Medicare are taken out of the VISTA Living Allowance.
Yeah, and so VISTA, in your VISTA Living Allowance, Social Security and Medicare are not taken out. And with regard to that, too, as we mentioned during PSO, your VISTA Living Allowance also does not qualify you for unemployment afterwards because you don't pay into that. So so that's just something to keep in mind. You're not paying towards Social Security or Medicare during your VISTA service. Karen here said that her pay was less than what was listed on the AmeriCorps site for my state. Is there a reason for this? So Karen, without going into too much detail because it sounds like a pretty unique situation, your living allowance is based on the county you are serving in. So not necessarily all states have the same, across the board living allowance amount. If you think there has been an error in the amount that you have received, the first thing you should do is visit the VISTA campus and check we have a resource on the VISTA campus under the benefits page under living allowance, which is pay rates by county. You can see what the net biweekly living allowance amount you should receive is based on the county you're serving in. And I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly, gross, not net. So that's before taxes. So you can look at that, understand that that taxes are being taken out, but you can use that little diagram to tell you what you should be expected to be paid biweekly for your living allowance before taxes. If you think there is an error, if you look at that and that's not what you've received or that's not the pay plan you're on, you should contact your state office. Another thing, and like I said, don't want to get too in the weeds here, most of you have only received one living allowance payment. And as Andy mentioned, living allowance payments and the amount that you received are based on 14 days of service. So if you started in the middle of a pay period and you only served for 9 days in that pay period, you're only paid for 9 days. The way to verify how many days you were paid for is to view your living allowance earning statement. It says how many days you were paid for in that pay period, and that can also maybe clear up some of that confusion. But Karen, if you've done all that research, you looked at it all, contact your state office and they will be able to help. And our wonderful Scott Weinrobe has posted that living allowance rates by county link in the chat.
Great, thanks for that, Jessica. A couple other questions. Maureen asks, will there be a wrap-up conference at the end of service, similar to PSO, for us to sum up our year? And unfortunately, the answer to that is no. We don't have the resources to bring people together again for like an end-of-year type of training or gathering, or we do have, ongoing trainings, as we mentioned, every month. We've got webinars, so virtually you can connect. And some state offices in some regions have gatherings or meetups face-to-face in the community or by state for VISTA members at some point during their service year, but there's not a particular end-of-service wrap-up session.
That's right, Andy, and yeah, definitely check out what's local in your area, find VISTAs in your area, and maybe set up your own. See, maybe there's 10 Vistas that went to your PSO or that you're in your PSO group, you can guys all meet up at the end of service and see how everything went. Angela here said, I remember reading about a settling-in allowance that should be included in the first payment as well. Is this across the board everywhere or on a case-by-case basis? So that's a great question, Angela. The settling-in allowance, which is a one-time payment at the beginning of service, is only available to those VISTA members who relocated more than 50 miles for service. So the VISTA member support unit should have been in contact with you if you qualified for relocation assistance. So you should have received notifications about receiving that allowance if you were entitled to it.
All right, so let's see, Javante had a follow-up question she asked earlier about if you get invited back to serve again. So would you still be on payroll for the second term of service? Well, we don't really call it payroll, but yeah, you would, if you serve an additional year as a VISTA member, or if you choose to become a VISTA leader, you would continue to receive a living allowance based on the rate set for that particular county where you would be serving.
That's right, and Angela, again, if you move 1,200 miles, you haven't received anything, you should contact the VISTA Member Support Unit via the National Service Hotline. Call them. They are wonderful individuals who will help you out.
Chandler has a question. I cannot see my living allowance. It says there is no earnings statement filed with the system at this time. Should I be able to see it by now if I'm due to be paid on Friday? Well, no, it won't show up actually until you get paid. So that will appear with your first living allowance payment.
And remember, as Andy said, if you're paid directly by your project, those won't show up there.
Yeah, there'll be a little note that says you'll get it from your sponsor.
So let's see here. So Andy, here's a great question for you since you are a healthcare guru. Sean here said, after I enrolled in VistaCare, I received an email saying I will only be covered for 60 days from the service start date. So does that mean my option doesn't last 1 year?
Right. So, so as you know, VISTA program offers two different benefits, and you qualify for one benefit or the other based on whether, under the Affordable Care Act, you're required to have health coverage or you're exempt from that requirement. So if you're required to have health coverage under the Affordable Care Act, then you can enroll in what we call our health care allowance. It's reimbursement up to $6,600 for out-of-pocket expenses like co-pays and prescriptions and those kinds of things that you pay yourself. You can submit the receipts, and IMG, our contractor, will pay you back for those expenses. If you're not required to have insurance under the terms of the Affordable Care Act, that is, you're exempt, and you get a certificate of exemption and you have an exemption number, you submit that to IMG, and then they'll enroll you in our, what we call a safety net plan, our health benefit plan. And it's not really insurance, but it will cover doctor's visits and prescriptions and hospital stays and that kind of thing. It's not a really robust plan, but it covers the basics and makes sure that you get the care that you need. So, Sean, it sounds like you're enrolled in our health benefit plan at Safety Net, and you have not yet submitted your exemption number. So we're willing to cover you for up to 60 days until you can sort that out through healthcare.gov, but you've got to get that exemption and submit that within 60 days. Otherwise, the coverage is going to end and you won't have any coverage. And if you don't have coverage and you're required to by law, that's grounds for termination because as VISTA members, we're expecting you to comply with the law. And if you're required under the Affordable Care Act to have insurance, then unfortunately, we have to make sure that you have it. So I hope that answered the question.
We had another question here from Maureen. It's just a follow-up about the education award. So she had two different questions. First, can you get more than one education award? Well, yes, you can. So you can get up to the equivalent of 2 full-time education awards. So if you serve 2 VISTA terms and you select the education award both times, you can get an education award each time. If you serve after that, you won't be eligible for other education award. However, VISTA is unique in the sense that we give you the option to choose between choosing an education award or an end-of-service cash payment of $1,500. So if you select, the education award twice, you serve 2 years, you get 2 education awards, and you're going to serve a 3rd year, you can select the end-of-service stipend, that $1,500 cash stipend, in that subsequent term. Like, you can do that for the 3rd one. So you can get 2 full-time education awards in your lifetime, and then you can get the stipend after that if you serve an additional year.
Great. Thanks for that, Jessica. Rachel has a question. She says, I'm serving part-time in D.C. and part-time in Richmond, but most of the time I'm in Richmond, but my supervisor and work is under D.C. Which county would I use to calculate my living allowance? Well, your living allowance rate would be set based on where your site is officially located. So go into your account in My AmeriCorps, and you should be able to see your site address listed there and see what the address is that's listed for you. And the county for that location would determine what your living allowance rate is set at.
All right, and I'm going to go back one more time to the phone. Elon, are there any questions over the phone?
I am showing no questions at this time.
All right, and Andy, do you see any others? I think we've caught them.
I think we have. So if we missed your question, we apologize. We're trying to do, there was one other question. So it was around pay periods. And so the question was, hey, if I'm getting paid directly from my sponsor, would the pay periods be the same or different from the pay periods, the official ones that the VISTA program has? We ask all of our sponsors to follow the same pay period schedule that we do, but it's possible that some of them their accounting system is set up a different way and it's impossible for them to follow our schedule. So to get the answer to that question, ask your supervisor. Your supervisor should be able to tell you what your pay schedule will be, so you'll know in advance. We don't want there to be any surprises, but because that's controlled by those certain sponsors, I wouldn't be able to tell you specifically what it would be for your particular site. All right, great questions, everybody. Thank you all for those.
Yeah, thank you all. We appreciate it. I know we went a little over, so thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, but before we depart, I want to share some information on an upcoming webinar. We've been talking about professional development, and so we want you to be able to continue developing. So we've got a webinar listed here. It's on project management coming up on August 31st, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And I want to, again, thank everybody for your participation. You shared some great resources and ideas with your colleagues. I also want to thank our production team, Scott Weinrobe and Andy Clark at Education Northwest, and of course my fellow presenter, Jessica Birch.
And I want to thank Andy King. Remember, Andy King DC on Twitter. Follow him. Someone's going to stalk you, Andy. Just be prepared.
I'm ready.
Stalking's not a cool thing. We're just kidding around here. It's really not cool. But follow Andy on Twitter.
Yep, and check the webinars for VISTA page on the campus, register for this session and all the other ones coming up. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for becoming a VISTA member. Thank you for your service, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.